growing up, my father called me a waste of height because I only scored 10 points against an old Japanese team in high school. And I can't blame my dad for the prognosis, knowing that every time I drove to the hoop, their players ran away scared from me, like they were movie extras in a Godzilla film, except instead of pointing up at me and saying, "Look, Godzilla," they'd say, "Look, Hugh Grant on stilts. Holla! Thank you very much." So this is a piece called Waste of Height. Once upon a time, there was a giant who lived in a tiny village called Humongous Falls in northern Westchester County, who never really fit in, despite owning a popular deli called Footlong the Giant, which is what all the local lumberjack giants frequented every day before chopping down more trees later used for bookshelves for their hobbit, hipster, southern neighbors in Bushwick, Brooklyn. Every day, the lumberjacks would taunt Footlong the Giant, calling him a waste of height for wasting his life making sandwiches for his fellow giants, when he could just have hired a bunch of hipster hobbits to perform the job instead. Every day, they'd accuse him of being soft, for shying away from a more hardcore form of manual labor, involving chopping down trees from dawn to sunset. One day, an 8-year-old aspiring professional food writer hobbit from Bushwick, known as Hardcore Hunga, wanted to do a profile for the Bushwick Post on Footlong the Giant, considering his legacy for making the best footlong heroes in New York, which were totally worth the schlep from Bushwick, assuming you didn't get too freaked out about getting stomped to death by a giant lumberjack by mistake on his lunch break. So one day, Hardcore Hunga fakes a tummy ache, ditches out on school, and flies his pet dragon to Humongous Falls to meet Footlong the Giant face to face, praying none of the giants lumberjack in town would sneeze in his general direction, which could send him flying all the way to Stink-A-Lot, Jersey, where all the shitty smelling swamp creatures roam. The Footlong Giant descended from a land of giants who grew up to their full height out of Mother Giant's womb, expected to get working from day one, being denied any sustained age of sheltered innocence from the real world of grinding, working every day till the last dying breath. Mother Giant finally banged out her last giant, and with no female giants to procreate with, making these last remaining giants the last of their kind, who normally started dropping like flies at a hard 40. So they barely slept and dedicated their walking lives to chopping wood, tearing the Footlong Giant down to size for thinking he was better than them, for being an artisan sandwich maker instead, when they weren't getting wasted off stouts, porters, and barley wine, which they were paid in from their hobbit hipster clients in Bushwick, while competing in humongous cannonball contests throughout Humongous Falls after work to blow off some necessary steam. They also sold wood for precious gems to local waterfall dwelling nymphs who made enormous bed structures which always broke down and needed repairing. For sleeping giants are us. Holla! Thank you very much! Today wasn't any ordinary day in the life of Footlong the Giant, because today he turned the big 4-0, but as usual had nobody to celebrate it with. That is until the best looking, biggest hearted, funniest hobbit from Bushwick graced his Footlong the Giant's deli with a tape recorder in hand to conduct a career launching interview with the greatest hero maker the Empire State has ever known. Footlong the giant gets ready to blow out 40 lit candles that go down in a straight line along his longest star hero creation yet, a 40-foot hero that rests on a giant bench table that reaches from one side of the deli to the next. The footlong giant turns off the lights in the store and braces himself to take a depressingly long, deep breath to make a 40th birthday wish, thinking this might be his last, and says just once, "I don't want to feel like a waste of height anymore." Then, as Footlong the giant opens his mouth to blow out the entire row of candles on his 40-foot long cheesesteak sub topped with Italian cherry peppers lined with mayo and semi-sharp provolone, he hears a knock on the door, which startles him a tad because it was already way past lunch hour and was normally used to spending this time in the store to get the chicken parm stains off the wall after the standard lunch hour rush from the sloppiest eating lumberjacks who ever lived. Hardcore Hunga Hobbit knocks on the door again, but peeks inside the window this time to see if anyone was inside, noticing a gorgeous flickering lighting of candles, thinking he walked into a death memorial giant service, knowing the giants of Humongous Falls were a dying breed and dropping like termite-infested totem poles these days. Footlong the giant opens the door, not noticing Hardcore Hunga Hobbit, who's a solid 4'2". Footlong the giant says to himself, "I must be hearing things in my old age." Hardcore Hunga Hobbit, still holding his baby dragon on a leash, instructs Dragon Lungs to blow a fireball that nearly misses his footlong giant's head. Footlong the giant looks down and finally notices Hardcore Hunga Hobbit and his trusted, always reliable companion, Dragon Lungs. Hardcore Hunga Hobbit starts pitching Footlong the giant. "I'm Hardcore Hunga Hobbit. I came all the way from Bushwick to interview a living hero maker legend." The footlong giant laughs hard and long, blowing Hardcore Hunga Hobbit off his feet. Yet Dragon Lungs puts on the brakes to make sure he doesn't get blown away into the wilderness, wrapping his leash around Hardcore Hunga Hobbit in mid-flight before slamming him to the ground to start wrapping him up as if he were roping a calf at a Texan rodeo. The footlong giant feels bad and invites Hardcore Hunga Hobbit and his pet dragon, Iron Lungs, into his store, yet totally forgets about not blowing out his row of 40 candles. Hardcore Hunga Hobbit was smarter than your average bear, so he realized almost immediately that he just crashed the footlong giant's Lonely Heart birthday celebration, if you want to call it that. Hardcore Hunga Hobbit does his best to cheer up the sad-hearted giant and says, "Happy birthday, footlong giant. This looks like your greatest hero creation yet. You really are a living legend for a reason." As Hardcore Hobbit Hunga examines the scrumptious cheesesteak hero bursting with over-the-top dynamite flavor, draped in glistening, creamy white provolone that's hugging onto the sesame-loaded Italian loaf from one end to the other for dear life, and counts 40 candles in total in the process, which fills his hobbit heart with extreme sadness, knowing 40 is normally a death sentence for all giants who hail from Humongous Falls. Hardcore Hunga Hobbit encourages Footlong the giant to blow out his candles and make a wish already, and says, "Make a wish and blow out the candles, Footlong giant." Wait a minute. One of the candles went out already. Dragon Lungs, do you mind? Dragon Lungs shoots a stream of fire, which lights the unlit candle on the end with laser-sharp precision, which puts a big smile on the footlong giant's face. Footlong the giant wants to return the good favored cheer from his kind, loving guests and gives them a birthday surprise to remember. The footlong the giant turns his bum toward the hero, lifts up his right leg, and rips a humongous fart, which blows a gusty jet stream of sweaty, leg-flapping, foul mist, which blows out all 40 candles in one swoop. Hardcore Hunga Hobbit and Dragon Lungs fall down this time from laughing uncontrollably, while holding their noses in the process. Footlong the giant shoots off a smile that could light up a youth hostel with no Wi-Fi during the upcoming Chinese rat-planted plague. Holla! Thank you very much! Footlong the Giant turns on the light in his deli and says, "Let's eat." Footlong the Giant cuts off a 4'2" hero and serves it to his new friend, Hardcore Hunga Hobbit, who conducts a lengthy interview till they all finish the hero together, dragon lungs included. After the story about Footlong the Giant got published in the Bushwick Post, New York State declared the Footlong Hero Deli a cherished historical site, especially now that all of his lumberjack clientele dropped dead the next day after turning 40 themselves. The Footlong Giant no longer felt like a waste of height, since his glorious friendship with Hardcore Hunga Hobbit began, who made him feel like the biggest star in the universe. After all the lumberjack giants dropped dead throughout Humongous Falls, the Footlong Giant moved to Bushwick with Hardcore Hunga Hobbit and opened a local deli, specializing in much smaller portions, of course. When they weren't building snow cones as big as skyscrapers every year for Hardcore Hunga Hobbit's birthday in February, the day before Valentine's Day, which the entire village of hobbits licked up till they all became mostly brain freeze dead, proving how the biggest hearts come in all sizes and packages. The end. This is the Do It All Dad Year podcast, dad-friendly entertainment for you and me. What Gen X dads understand, controlling my kids with comedy, controlling our kids with comedy, can make our kids great again. My 3 fuss-free kids, 98% of the time, are living proof of it. This piece was inspired by a documentary that I saw by Andre the Giant. I've always wanted to write a giant story, and I now have the perfect title for my collection of short stories, Waist to Height, really short stories. You're welcome. I want to thank all of my fans on WordPress for encouraging my storytelling, my gift of gab. Originally, I was considering the title Long-Winded New York Short Stories, but it doesn't pop nearly as much. And it's usually your 4th or 5th idea that's usually the best. So I love you all, and I'll talk to you guys soon.